Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is having a beautiful, beautiful Friday. It's bitterly cold here. It's beautifully sunny, but the wind is really intense and burning cold, which is a real change. I watched back some of these videos that I've done, and you can see how I'm getting more and more clothed as the time goes on. Welcome. Welcome to Field Notes from the Ranch. This week we have been exploring feel within the ReWilding Circle. And it on the surface seems such a simple thing. But today what I would like to do is bring everything that we've talked about this week together so that it becomes something that you can actually use, not just a word that coaches and trainers throw around as if everybody knows what it means, because that's a problem. Quite often, the simple words that sound simple, the depth of them is so deep that an explanation is really difficult. But what I want to do here is try and give you some framing for it. It's not the be all and end all, it's not the final say, but it is a framing network that you can start to investigate and explore for yourself so that you start understanding this word in particular, but other throwaway taglines that I hear quite often, which is not doing us any good really, because that lack of understanding creates those foggy conversations that we have with our horses, or that lack of honesty of how we show up because we're pretending to know when we don't really know. You know, we hear a lot when we hear the word feel, other sentences that go with it. So, well, other phrases. So, like follow the feel, or find the feel, offer the feel. And half the time, like I say, nobody really explains what they are talking about. And it becomes that tagline, a throwaway phrase, and we're all nodding along, they're nodding along, people quietly thinking yes, 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 but is it yes? So what I would like to do is just slow the whole thing down and talk about feel in a way that makes sense in your body, in your mind, and in your relationship with your horse. You and I know that this is where everything begins. Feel is not just about physical contact. Feel is not a technique, and feel is definitely not something you should be pulling out when everything is calm. Feel is the moment you recognize what is happening inside you before your horse has come anywhere close to you. And your horse will pick up on that again before you get close to your horse, because your horse always gets there first when interpreting how the feel is being applied. The second your intention shifts, they feel it. The second your breath tightens, they feel it. The second your mind jumps ahead to that next task, they feel it. And this is why feel is individual. Every person experiences it through their own nervous system, their own history, their own interpretation of pressure and release, for example. But the foundation of feel is shared by everyone and experienced by every horse. Clarity, presence, awareness, timing, and balance, these are universal. I want to just break it down a little further and talk about the internal feel, because that's where it all begins. Before we talk about physical, we have to talk about that internal landscape. This is the part most people skip because it is the hardest to hang on to hold, to find tangibility in. They go straight to hands on, the rope, the seat in the saddle, legs around the horse, but feel begins long before your horse is even in sight. You know that moment when you walk toward the field and something inside you is already ahead of you? Thinking, planning, worrying, or maybe hoping. All of that is feel. It is the first feel your horse picks up on, and it sets the tone for everything that follows. So, what I would like to share with you now is a very simple practice that I use with my clients. And it brings them back into themselves without overthinking. So, this is the internal check in before the first step. And it goes like this. So, before you move toward your horse, just pause. Feel the weight in your feet. Notice your breath. Without fixing it, feel any emotion that is sitting in your chest or in your stomach. You don't need to label it. It's not about giving it a name. It's about acknowledging that it's there. It's creating an awareness of your internal dialogue. And that is the first layer of feel, honesty. Because if you cannot feel yourself, you will not feel your horse. It takes about a minute to do, but it changes the entire interaction. So we're only half of the conversation, obviously. And now I would like to bring in the horse, because that's why we're here, right? And talk about what your horse gives you. They're incredible, generous beings. And they're always offering you something. And when we talk about feel, one thing that's really important to understand is that horses live through feel because their life depends on it. That means that they can read your story through your nervous system intently. They read the softness, they read the pressure, they read your intention, your hesitation, the clarity that you bring, everything that you bring. And the moment they freeze, lean, rush, brace, or zone out, your feel is already talking. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because communication just shifted. So the question becomes, do you want to keep your automatic reaction, or do you want to understand it and create a response? And to understand it, we need to connect the internal with the external. So there's a second exercise that I want to share with you, which you can try this week, and I hope that you do. And this exercise I call feeling your horse through your hands. So the next time you're with your horse, before you do anything else, place your hands lightly on their neck or shoulder and slowly move along their back, their legs, wherever feels natural and unrushed. And of course, as long as it is always safe to do so. You're not checking for problems. You are not diagnosing anything. You are just listening through your hands. Notice where the muscles are soft. Notice where the skin twitches. Notice where the breath moves. Does it pause? Notice how your horse shifts weight in response to your touch. This is not influence. This is feel. This is the beginning of a conversation that's not the start of a correction. Now, step back and ask yourself, what did that teach you about your horse standing in front of you today. Not yesterday, not the version of them you wish to have. This horse, this moment. That is real feel. Moment to moment listening, moment to moment noticing. Where things start to intensify and become exciting is when we bring the feel into doing. Because feel is not just about being, which is another misconception. And I think this is where people get really confused. They think feel is connected only to softness or to slowness or to meditation. But feel is both being and doing. Feel is what steadies your timing when things get fast. Feel is what keeps your intention clean when pressure rises. Feel is what guides you when those old reactions want to take over. And this is where the old teachers said you cannot hide from your horse, because when you lose feel, even for a second, your horse will tell you. And I'd like you to hold on to this, that when you lose your feel and your horse is telling you, is not failure. That is information. So instead of thinking I messed it up, start thinking, all right, that was the moment my feel slipped. What was happening inside me? Did I rush? Did I freeze? Did I tighten? Did I take something personally? Go back and look at a reel that I posted on Facebook the other day, and you'll see me messing up with my horse as I lost some feel with a syringe full of apple juice. That's when feel breaks down exactly there in the unseen micro moments. So to bring all of that together, I would like to offer you a guided moment. I'd like to take 60 seconds right now. It's something that you can do alone or with your horse, but it just helps you return in that connecting that internal dialogue with that external presence. So you can sit or you can stand where you are, let your shoulders drop and feel your breath. Feel the weight in your feet. Now imagine your horse is standing in front of you, not as an idea, but as a presence. Feel that space in between you. Feel your intention without trying to change it. Now soften your focus and ask yourself quietly, what is the very first sensation that shows up in my body? That is your baseline feel. The one that shows up before you speak, before you move, or before you touch your horse. And this is where your timing begins. This is where clarity begins. This is where the relationship begins. I want to share with you a quick story about a horse that I have worked a lot with and continue to do so, and that is Channie. And he is the big grey gelding that you probably have seen in some of my posts. He is a horse that would always walk away when approached in the field, particularly if you had a halter in your hand. A lot of history, a lot of trauma. People had tried a lot of techniques, a lot of pressure, a lot of treats, hanging around, release, more pressure, less pressure. Nothing changed in him. When I stepped in for the very first time, I did nothing with my hands. I stood still and I listened. And the first thing I felt was that tiny surge of anticipation, that old pattern of wanting the outcome, wanting him to approach me or allow me to approach him. And even that small rush was enough for him to shift and walk away. So I had to reset and dig really deep. I slowed my internal feel and I let the outcome go. I softened that expectation, and that is when Channie stopped walking away. Not because I used a method, but because the feel changed. And once the feel changed, the horse could stay. And this is what I mean when I say feel is not a trick. It is not a technique. It is the foundation for everything. So today I want you to carry one thought with you. Feel is not something you apply. Feel is something you return to. It meets you in the doing, but it begins in the being. It guides you through the pressure, but it starts in the quiet. It shapes the connection long before you touch the lead rope. And your horse every single day gives you honest feedback about where your feel sits. So take the 2 practices into your week, the internal check-in before you move and the gentle hands on your horse without trying to change anything. Then watch what changes, not in them first, but in you, because that is the moment the conversation really begins. And I'd love to know how you get on with this. And every now and again, when you feel that feel is flighting, check in. Just ground yourself. It'll make a huge difference to your conversation. Trust me. So don't forget to do all the things, subscribe, like, share. Makes all the difference to getting the word out there. And thank you for listening and being here with me. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.